US President Biden surprised many observers over the weekend when he called his Russian counterpart a butcher who cannot remain in power. His remarks were quickly clarified by US officials, but questions remain over how deliberate the mistake was. A little earlier, I spoke to Ambassador Earl Anthony Wayne, former US Assistant Deputy Secretary of State for Europe. I started by asking him what he made of Mr. Biden's latest diplomatic efforts.
Well, I think it was indeed a very full weekend. We had summits of NATO, of the G7, and US and EU meeting. And of course, the focus was different ways in which these partners and allies could support Ukraine, looking both at the military aspect, but also at the non-military aspects of this conflict. For example, the United States and the European Union agreed on a project, a plan for supporting liquefied natural gas to Europe to help make up for the supplies that will be lost from Russia. Then President Biden went to Poland and met with Ukrainian refugees as well as Polish officials, and as we know, gave a very powerful and emotional speech, which got perhaps the line that was most repeated, where he talked about hoping that President Putin would not remain in power, and which then the United States quickly walked back to say that this was not a call for regime change. It was a reflection of the emotion that the president felt after meeting with some of those 3.9 million refugees that have fled Ukraine.
And of course, as a new week begins, international diplomatic efforts are being ramped up. Face-to-face talks between Russia and Ukraine are due to start in Turkey. What are the prospects for peace?
Well, I think it is encouraging that they will be talking. Ukraine's president has said that they are open to the idea of neutrality, but they are not open to the idea of giving up Ukrainian territory. And as you know, a number of the speculative reports in the press have talked about the Russians reoriented their ambitions to consolidate control over certain areas, especially in the east of the country, and maybe hiving those off. So there's still a lot of work to do to bring the two sides closer together, but it is encouraging that they're talking. There is still a lot of military activity. There's been intense missile attacks and artillery attacks by the Russians, and the Ukrainian forces have launched counterattacks and have retaken territory around Kyiv and other cities. So it does seem that there is a consolidation going on by the Russian forces as they try to not be so exposed to successful Ukrainian attacks, but it's not clear yet whether this will be a consolidation that they will just hold back in these areas, or if they're just planning a new thrust.
And just picking up on that, what you said there about consolidation, do you think Ukraine could end up effectively divided between the east, which is Russian controlled, and a rump Ukrainian state in the west, similar to the way Korea ended up divided between the north and the south?
Well, that is certainly one possibility. But I think in this case, the Ukrainians have made clear they're going to continue to fight for their territory. So I hope that we don't have a prolonged conflict and that kind of a division, but certainly that's one of the possible outcomes going forward. I think we are in for a prolonged period of negotiation, a prolonged period of fighting. One thing that was clear from the weekend is that NATO and other countries are going to continue to resupply Ukraine in this effort. And there are also reports that the Russians are calling for volunteers from Syria and potentially other places. And they've also reportedly called back their professional mercenary group, the Wagner group, to come and fight in Ukraine.
Very interesting indeed. Ambassador Earl Anthony Wayne, thank you very much indeed. And he was the former U.S. Assistant Deputy Secretary of State for Europe and a career diplomat, and he was talking to me there from Washington.